Okay, so I don't break dance. I have a very tenuous grasp on gravity as it is, and I will never test it like that. So my name is Stacey Abrams. I am running for governor of Georgia. Thank you. They've got this big clock up here, so thank you. I hope all of you live in Georgia. Excellent. So no, I'm here to talk about allies. It is my privilege to be a strong, vocal, and unapologetic ally for the LGBTQ community. But the problem is you can't count on us. And that's why I'm here, because we have seen in the last 6 to 8 months that things that we thought were taken care of have been unraveled, that choices we thought had been made permanent have been made very temporary. And I'm here because you have to hold us accountable. I grew up in Mississippi. I'm the daughter of two people who started out just working poor, and then they decided to make it permanent by becoming ministers. So we moved from Mississippi to Atlanta when I was a junior in high school because both of my parents were admitted to Emory University. They went to Candler School of Theology together. Emory. And I grew up not having conversations about the LGBTQ community. I grew up believing, as do most folks in Mississippi, or at least what we thought we believed, was that there was something wrong. We never had a conversation. My parents never brought it up. But we went to this church in Georgia when we moved to Atlanta, a church called St. Mark. And St. Mark was across the street from Andrew Stanley's church, Charles Stanley at the time. And they would have an annual parade down Peachtree, the largest street in Georgia, where they yelled and screamed about how God hated gays. And I watched my parents at this church where we were the only African Americans in this congregation. I wondered what my parents thought about this. But I never asked the question. But because my parents are my parents, I didn't have to, because one of the first protests that I participated in Georgia was my mom and dad standing outside with their 6 children, the El Salvadoran community that lived upstairs in the church, and about 45 older white people all holding up signs saying, "God loves gays." This is... Now, the march that was coming down Peachtree was being led by angry people, by people who were terrified that somehow this community was going to take from them. And they were using the most precious and sacred part of my religion to say that this community wasn't valid. And I expected my parents to share those beliefs, but the thing is, you don't know what anyone thinks until you bother to ask. And that's one of the points about being an ally. And so my parents lived the example that I needed to know, which is no matter what we thought our religion said, the God they raised us to believe said that we stood out there 50 against 500 because we had to do what was right. And that is the responsibility of allies. That is our job. Fast forward, I've started a couple of tech companies, one that's done fairly well, one that is struggling along. But in both of those endeavors, I've always had business partners. I don't start anything by myself, so when something goes horribly wrong, it's somebody else's fault. It works very well. I have not figured out how that's going to work in this campaign, but I'm open to ideas. So when I start these companies, I have partners because I don't know enough on my own. But more importantly, I need people who have different experiences, different networks, different competencies to stand beside me if we're going to get things done. And so whether I'm in fintech or in social communications, it is important to me to do this together. And that's why I'm here today, because we've got to do this together. Because the rights and the progress that have been made by the LGBTQ community, by lesbians who tech, and by the people they love and the folks they know, those rights are not permanent. In fact, if nothing else, being black has taught me that no rights are permanent. That unfortunately, everything is always in question. We've been fighting for 240 years to vote, and they're still trying to stop us. You shouldn't clap for that one. Clap back. Thank you. Thank you. There you go. But the reality of this is this. All rights, all civil rights are a constant battle. It's a constant fight to make certain that we live up to our promise as Americans, that we become the more perfect union we say we want to be. And there is no way to do that if we leave behind a vital part of our community. And that's where allies have to be held to account. But we cannot do it without your direction. And so I'm here to talk about where we need you to guide us so we get our work done. First and foremost, I need you to speak up. Say speak up. Speak up. In the state of Georgia and across the country, most state legislators are part-time employees. Most city council members are part-time. Most mayors part-time. And the time that they are in office, they're not thinking about you. That is a problem. Because the reality is we spent so much time being angry with the orange one in the White House and being upset about what Congress is allowing to happen, we forget that most of the erosion of rights happen right at home. It's not a DC problem, it's a Main Street problem. And if we do not engage in the state and local level, everyone's rights are at stake, especially the rights that we've helped to accrue and the rights that still need to be gathered, the rights that still need to be enforced. So we have to speak up and talk about what those rights look like. Do not assume that we know. So you have to speak up and tell us, what's the problem, why is it a problem, and how do we solve it? And do not allow us to walk away from the conversation without being able to say it back to you. So first I need you to do what? Speak up. The second thing you have to do is stand up. Everyone say stand up. Stand up. You have to stand up and tell us what to do about it. So once you've explained it and once we understand it, you then need to tell us what we have to do. Because and you do that by standing up and coming to city council meetings, by showing up at the state capitol and standing up to us and saying, why haven't you voted for this? And sometimes it's about standing up and telling us to sit down. Because if you don't tell us to stand up, if you don't stand up for yourselves, we're never going to do it. Because as I said, most of us are part-time. A lot of us have 5,000 things we're thinking about, and if it's not central to our lives, we don't necessarily know we need to do it. So once you've spoken up, if you are willing to stand up, you will help us do the work better. But you also have to stand up and make certain that your money gets counted. And I'm going to talk about money for a second. Because the thing is, just as in business, the golden rule applies to politics. And so if you want us to pay attention, invest in the people who are going to do what you need them to do. The same way we invest in tech companies, we have to invest in Good Politicians, Inc. We have to invest in allies who say they're going to do what they need to do and be held to that. We have to be willing to stand up and say, I've invested in you, or you investing in me. So first I need you to do what? And then I need you to stand up. And third is I need you to show up. Say show up. Show up. Show up at the ballot box. Show up at the ballot box. Show up at the ballot box. If we don't know that it matters to vote, I want you to look south to Washington, D.C. But worse, I want you to look at Texas and what they're doing with the transgender bathrooms. I want you to look at North Carolina. And then I want you to think about who have you not heard about in these 50 states who are plotting against you. Who have we not heard about who do not believe that your right to exist in America should be unassailable and uncontroverted? You need allies to stand with you because we have to also be willing to show up. We hold a job. I'm running for the top job in Georgia, a job that no black woman has ever held in the history of the United States. Thank you. But I'm showing up for this job because I need to be an ally and stand up for you. I need to speak up for you. I need to show up for you. But I can't do it alone. We can't do it alone. You need to hire people who will speak up, stand up, and show up for you, and you need to fire those who refuse to do their jobs. Fire them at the ballot box. Tell them to go home and figure out what they should be doing. Because whether we're talking about the fact that in the state of Georgia, you can be fired in Georgia simply for who you love and who you are. There are no legal protections in the employment code for the state of Georgia if you're an LGBTQ member. And that's true across the country. You shouldn't lose your job. You shouldn't lose your home. You shouldn't lose your life because of who you are. We have to believe that we should show up every single day to defend rights. So first I need you to do what? And then I need you to, and then I need you to, and now I will shut up. Thank you so much for having me.